He worked for the FBI. The money that he has all came from the CIA. And I have been at the Gülen complex, investigated Mr. Gülen for years and years and years. Gülen for the United States represented a way that they could control the Turkish government. The United States is very much concerned in gaining the natural resources around the Caspian Sea, in Kazakhstan, that area, stretching throughout Central Asia. That has been our strategy for quite a long time. Now, all these stain countries, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkestan, as you know very well, all share a Turkish culture. So the CIA thought they could unite all of these different Stan republics under Gülen. And therefore, for many years, we have, with the Gülen schools throughout Central Asia, within each Gülen school, there was a CIA operative. And that gave them cover. They could make these countries increasingly militantly Islamic, all to unite them to Gülen. And through Gülen, we would create this vast empire throughout Central Asia, with Turkey as a proxy, controlled by Gülen. And we, in turn, would control Gülen. Gülen, you gotta understand that Gülen, in terms of his financial resources, has over $50 billion. This came out in court documents here. $50 billion in assets. These assets, of course, were not accumulated by Gülen's business acumen or his educational background. The guy is very poorly, really educated. He has what amounts to a third-grade education. He doesn't speak English. The money that he has all came from the CIA. And with the CIA, through the CIA, he managed to purchase the leading newspaper in Turkey, the Turkish television outlets. He managed to set up his own construction company, but all this was with CIA money. It's not his money, it's the CIA money. Well, you got to understand that after he tried to overthrow the government in Turkey, as you guys well know, back in 1998, he was transported to the United States in U.S. military transport. He landed in Washington, D.C., and from Washington, D.C., the CIA transported him to Pennsylvania, where he set up this compound, and he presently lives. Well, Gülen was very much involved in Operation Gladio. In the beginning, with the CIA, Chotley was the leading U.S. gladiator. And you remember that Chotley was, going back to, I think it was 1987, he was in a prison in Switzerland. And we sent a NATO helicopter, and it landed. Hit the door to his jail cell suddenly opened. He was transported by a NATO helicopter to Brussels, and from Brussels he was brought to Chicago. And in Chicago, Chotley was granted U.S. credentials, a U.S. passport, and he was transported from there to Central Asia, to the same areas where the Gülen schools were set up. Once again, this was all the CIA's attempt to start a pan-Turkish movement throughout the republics in Central Asia. After Chotley died, his successor was Gülen. If anyone has any doubts about the CIA's ties to Gülen, all they need to do is look at when he applied for permanent residency in the United States. Look at who supported his application. Graham Fuller, who was a leading CIA operative, Morton Abramovitz, who was the U.S. ambassador, former U.S. ambassador to Turkey, Mark Grossman, who was a former U.S. ambassador to Turkey. Look right now who is the leading Turkish lobbyist in the United States. He works for Gülen, and his name is Porter Goss, who is a CIA director. So the ties between Gülen and the CIA, once again, are, I mean, you can't question that. That's already established fact. Gülen is the reason that he's so important is that Gülen, and how are you going to unite all these different countries, these stand countries, into one new Islamic world order? You can do that politically, like they did in the Ottoman times, or else you can do it religiously by setting up schools, by indoctrinating the students in Gülen's form of Islam, which is really militant. And through that, all these different republics become united in one movement. That's why Gülen was so strategic for years and years and years. And as long as his schools are still in place throughout Central Asia and throughout the United States, he will remain a very, very prominent power.